This video is about understanding the relationship between slope and rate of change, finding slope from a table, graph, or function rule, finding the y-intercept from a table, graph, or function rule, and finding the missing variable given a slope. So in the first part, we're going to find the slope given 2 points. Now, you can find it two ways. You can either create your own table or you can use the slope equation. The slope equation is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The thing you just have to worry about is that the y variables go on top, the x variables go on the bottom, and that the number in front for y2, the x2 comes from the same point. So in A, we would have 3 minus 3 over negative 8 minus 2. This gets us 0 over negative 10. Remember, 0 divided by any number is just 0. In B, we would have negative 7 minus negative 5 over negative 3 minus 8. Remember that two negatives make a plus, which gets us negative 2 over negative 11. If you have two negatives, remember the negatives are going to cancel out, so our slope would be 2 over 11. C, we have y2, which is 8 minus negative 3 over 11 minus 11. And in this case, we would get 11 because two negatives make a positive over 0. Remember that you cannot have 0 on the bottom, so this is an undefined slope. Because if you were to put this in your calculator, you would get an error. It's undefined. You can never have a 0 on the bottom of a fraction. And then in D, we would have 3 minus 1 and 6 minus 14. Two negatives make a positive, so we have 4 over negative 8. And that reduces to negative 1/2. Remember, it doesn't matter where the negative is as long as there's an odd number of negatives, so you keep your negative in there. Number 2, use a scenario below, write two ordered pairs, and then find the slope. So in this case, we're going to read what it says first. We have 1 week into summer. Katie has $135. During week 11 of summer, Katie has $270. So we have two different points. We have weeks and months for one time, and then another week in money. So in week 1, that's going to be our x-coordinate, because weeks would always be on the x-axis, and money would be on the y-axis. So at week 1, she has $135, and then at week 11, she has $270. So now we can find our slopes. So remember, we have x1, y1, x2, y2. Remember, it doesn't really matter which one x1 and y1 are, and x2 and y2 are, as long as they're from the same ordered pair. So then we would have 270 minus 135 over 11 minus 1. That would get us 135 over 10, and that reduces to $13.50 per week. The way that we're getting the per week is, remember, the numbers on the top are representing money, and the numbers on the bottom were representing our week, so that's how we get our unit at the end of our problem. In B, it says in 1965, the town of Devonfield had 471 residents. In 1981, the town of Devonville had 2,407 residents. So we have a year and the number of residents, and a year and the number of residents to create our ordered pairs. So we have 1965, comma 471, and we have 1981, comma 2,407. So in this case, remember, we're going to subtract our y's first. So 2,407 minus 471 over our x's, 1981 minus 1965. So when I subtract 1,936, and when I subtract on the denominator, I get 16. So now I'm going to divide those, and I get 121. Remember that the numbers on top are representing our residents, and the number on the bottom is representing years. So we have 121 residents per year. Number 3, identify the slope and rate and the starting point and y-intercept. So remember that slope and rate are the same thing. Slope and rate of change represent the same thing. Because remember that slope and rate of change are found in front of the variable. And then remember that starting point and y-intercept are also the same thing, and they are the number that's not with the variable. So in number 3, we have c equals 100 plus 10m. So in this case, our rate would be 10. Our slope would be 10. Our starting point and our y-intercept are both the 100. Remember when we write starting point or y-intercept, it's always going to be 0, comma, our y-intercept or starting point number. So we would have 0, comma, 100, and our y-intercept would be 0, comma, 100. In number 2, we have y equals 2x minus 15. So our rate of change is 2. Our slope is 2. And then our starting point would be 0, negative 15, because it's a number that's by itself. And our y-intercept is also 0, negative 15. In C, we have y equals 150 minus 4x. So our slope and rate of change number is the number with the variable. So we would have negative 4 for the rate and the slope. Our y-intercept is the number that's by itself. So 0, 150 and 0, 150. Number 4, Jeremy deposits $150 a paycheck into his bank account and started off with $1,560 in his bank account. So we need to make a function rule. So when I make a function rule, I'm going to say that y equals the money in account. And I'm going to say that x equals the weeks that he's or the paychecks that he's putting into the money in every time he's getting a paycheck. So we would have y equals 1,560 because that's how much money he's starting with, plus $150 x because he's putting 150 in per paycheck. So our rate is what it's changing by, so 150. Our slope is also 150. Our starting point is how much money he starts with in the bank account, so we'd have 0, 1,560 for both the start point and the y-intercept. Number 5, identify the slope, rate of change, starting point, and y-intercept. So in number 5, we know that we should have a positive slope because our line is going up from left to right. So to find our slope, we can create that triangle from one point to another, and we can count up and then always to the right. So we went up 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, and to the right 2. So our rate of change is 4 over 2, which reduces to 2, or we could say 2 over 1. Our slope is also the same thing, 2 over 1. Our y-intercept in the starting point is where we cross the y-axis. So the line is crossing the y-axis at 4. So our starting point and y-intercept would be 0, 4. Remember, we're always going to write those as a coordinate. In part B, notice our line is going down from left to right. So this time when I go find my rate of change, I should have a negative because I went down 1 over 1. So my rate of change would be negative 1 over 1, which is the same as my slope. My y-intercept and my starting point, again, is where I'm crossing the y-axis. So in this case, the point would be negative or 0, negative 3. Number C, or letter C, is a horizontal line. Remember from when we've talked about lines that are horizontal before, if it's horizontal, our rate and our slope is 0 because there's no change. The line's just flat. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, so our y-intercept would be 0, negative 1. Now, when we have a line that's up and down, remember when we were doing slope with points earlier, we had a 0 on the bottom, which is an undefined slope. So if your line is vertical, this is when we have an undefined slope. Because it's forever going up or down, it never moves a different direction. When we have an undefined slope, we don't have a starting point or a y-intercept because it's never going to cross the y-axis. It's always going to be parallel to it because they're both running up and down. So what if I already have a slope and I need to find a coordinate? So find the y value so that the line passing through the point 3, y, and 5, 8 has a slope of 2. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our coordinates that they give us and we're going to do the slope equation. So remember that the first coordinates could be x1 and y1, the second coordinates would be x2 and y2. So we have 8 minus y equals 5 minus 3. So when I simplify that, 8 minus y is already simplified, 5 minus 3 is 2. Now, we're going to take this and set it equal to our slope. So if we have 8y, 8 minus y over 2 equal to our slope. So if our slope is just 2, remember we can put that over 1 so it also has a denominator. And now we're going to cross multiply. So when we cross multiply, we have 1 times 8 minus y equals 2 times 2. So remember when you cross multiply, you're doing the opposite numerator and denominators from the opposite side of the equal sign. So we get 8 minus y equals 4. I can subtract 8 from both sides. Negative y equals negative 4. And we divide by negative 1. Our other y coordinate would be 4. Number 8. Find the value of y so that the line passing through the points negative 2y and 0, 3 has a slope of negative 1 over 2. So in this case, we have the slope. I'm going to have x1, x2, y, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to first make my slope equation again. So 3 minus y over 0 minus negative 2. So this simplifies to y, 3 minus y over, remember 2 negatives would make just a positive, so 2. So now I'm going to take what I was simplified to and set it equal to my slope. 3 minus y over 2 equals negative 1 over 2. Make sure when you're cross multiplying, you take the negative and either make it part of the denominator or part of the numerator. Don't use it twice. So when I cross multiply, I have 2 times 3 minus y, and I have negative 1 times 2. So I'm going to distribute to get rid of my parentheses. So 6 minus 2y equals negative 2. Subtract 6 from both sides. Negative 2y equals negative 8. And when I divide, I again get that y is 4.